She talks. She listens. She cares. She's Joyce Oglesby. In today's ever-changing world, Joyce takes on the hottest issues. She fights for what's right in America.
I wanna leave a legacy. How will they remember me?
Just Ask Joyce is brought to you by Guaranteed Total Construction, Window World, Nan's and Crafts Florists, Squire Boone Caverns, and About Face Spa and Salon. Now, Just Ask Joyce.
Leave that kind of legacy.
And welcome to Just Ask Joyce. I'm Joyce Oglesby, your Family Life Fix-It Pro, getting you fit for life and love every day God's way. It is February, and so our focus is on love. I would be remiss if I did not talk about love in a very specific way. Now, I'm always talking about love on the Just Ask Joyce show because I believe that love is basic, it's fundamental, it's absolutely a necessity, really, for your legacy to be preserved. And of course, I'm all about preserving a legacy, my legacy and yours. But I can tell you there are some things that you have to do. I can only do so much. I can help you in relationship problems, etc. But I can't preserve your legacy. Only you can do that. And so today we're going to focus on, I think, three very basic fundamental aspects of love and what it's going to take for you to preserve your legacy. And this thought came to me as I was sitting in a funeral, and it's kind of a somber way to begin the show, isn't it? But I just have to share this with you. A very well-known veterinarian in our area, Bill McDonald, passed away, and it was a tragic accident. And I didn't know him personally, but I knew his family, his brother and his family come to our church. And so, of course, Webby and I were very attentive to the family's needs, and Webby's always wonderful with those kinds of situations. But I went to the funeral, and I was blown away at the magnitude of love that one man really embraced in that whole community. He left an impact with a legacy, and now we're talking a young man. I think Bill was in his 40s, a young man, too young to pass away and leave 3 children and a wife behind, and of course all of his siblings and parents. It's just out of the order of life, isn't it? But Bill made an impact on the community. He has a legacy that is going to live on forever. And it's going to be a legacy of love that all of us should aspire to. I can tell you, I sat there as I watched people just pour in. I mean, they had viewings even a couple of days before maybe, and people could not everyone got to come and say their condolences to the family because the lines were so long. That was the impact that man made. I sat there and I listened to the eulogies that were being presented on behalf of Bill. And I was looking out over the audience, and I was watching the faces as people were sharing stories about Bill and how he had impacted their life and the impression that he had made upon them. And you could tell that everyone there knew that Bill. Everyone in the audience knew that Bill and loved that Bill. I watched as his family smiled and laughed during some of the stories because he apparently was quite the character. But I just thought, this man really knew how to love. He really knew how to love. And I believe that is what each of us should be working toward in our families, to leave that kind of love imprint in our home, whether we're here or whether we're not. And unfortunately, Bill was too young to be taken away, but an accident caused his early demise. Because he had a lot of love left in him, and he was hoping, I'm sure, to impart that and leave even more impressionable moments on his family and his kids, and there's going to be a void there for a long time. But I sat there and I wondered, if I passed away today, would I leave that kind of mark upon my family, upon my friends, upon my, just acquaintances, somebody that didn't even know me, like me. I mean, I walked in not knowing this man, but I left there knowing everything that I felt like was important about Bill McDonald, because that's the legacy of love. And I want to help you today just work toward that kind of legacy for your family. But it has to begin, and as most all families do, begin with the foundation of love, because that's what we do. We fall in love and we get married. Now, I know that there are other cultures who make the commitment first. I know India is one of those countries where the parents prearrange the marriages still. Not all, I don't think everybody does, but for the most part, they still arrange the marriages. So they make the commitment and then they fall in love. I don't know that I could do that. I fell in love head over heels with Webby at first sight. But I was willing to commit myself to him that very day, that very moment. But it happened over a process. I mean, I had to convince him, number one, to fall in love with me, and that was fun. You'll have to hear that story sometime. But, there was this process of love that took place, and then the commitment came. But once we're committed, what happens to the love? And this is what concerns me as a mentor, as someone who is involved day in and day out with family issues, with people writing me or calling me, or I'm sitting down and I'm, holding the hands and I'm trying to, I'm praying over people, or I'm listening to their problems, and I'm wondering, so where did the love go? What's happened to it? And that's a concerning thing for me, and it should be for you. And especially if you're in a situation right now where love might be a little misplaced in your family. Is it misplaced? Sometimes we get that way, don't we? We kind of wax and wane with our measure of love. We might can love very deeply to someone that we're committed to. Maybe it's our children even, But I want to talk about you and your spouse right now. Focus on that, because after all, you two are the deciding factors of whether this family legacy is going to go forth. You two have to stay in love, and you two have to project that love day in and day out, like it or not, whether you feel like it or not. And that's some of the points that we're going to go over today as I take you through these, I think, 3 important aspects of love. And the first one that I want to point out to you in this love issue that we're talking about is this. And you'll remember this is going to be very easy for you to grasp, all right? Because it's love weather, all right? You think about love weather. Get your pen, get your paper, whatever you have to do, and just make a note. But jot these down, maybe in your Bible or on a piece of paper, and keep it in your wallet or in your purse, or maybe put it on a Post-it note and stick it on your mirror so that when you go in every morning, you get to look at this, all right? So here we are, love weather. You feel like it or not. And some days, guys, we just don't feel like it, do we? Sometimes we just have moods, and especially, I know, I'm a woman. I know some days it seems like I can't control what my hormones are doing, and sometimes I just get up grouchy, and I don't really feel like dealing with life, much less love or anybody else. And so but the thing is, Webby is my life. He's my husband. He's my legacy. He's the other half of my legacy. I'm one half, he's the other half. And if we're going to preserve that legacy, guess what? I have to love whether I feel like it or not. And the same goes with my children. Sometimes I could pinch their heads off even with their big toes. You know that. And even some of our grandkids sometimes, But we love, it's easier to love those grandkids, isn't it? It's funny. But we love whether we feel like it or not. And I think that is what we have to just keep in mind, that love has got to linger. Love has got to be in place. We cannot misplace it. We have to, whether we feel like it one day, feel like it one moment, and not the next. Maybe we are at odds with each other. We've had a heated argument. You can fall out, but not fall off. You know, don't fall out of love. You can fall out over an issue, but don't fall out of love. Love whether you feel like it or not. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, I'm going to give you round 2 of Love Weather in this episode of Love on Just Ask Joyce. Don't go away.
You're watching Just Ask Joyce, where real life and family values connect. Just Ask Joyce is brought to you by Guaranteed Total Construction, Window World, Nans & Crafts Florists, Squire Boone Caverns, and About Face Spa and Salon.
And welcome back to Just Ask Joyce. If you're just joining the show, we are talking about love. And this is an episode you certainly want to go back and catch on my podcast or catch the next time it plays. Make sure that you catch it because you know what? You want to preserve your family legacy, and that's what we do on every episode of Just Ask Joyce. But today, we're talking about love, and I hope that you enjoy these beautiful flowers from Nans & Craft on our show of love. They always just absolutely pour a lot of love into their arrangements. We were talking about the first of the 3 aspects I want you to know and grasp about love today in order to preserve your legacy. But I do want to just kind of add a little bit to that. Now, you'll see my quote for the day. This is not my quote, but this is someone else's quote. It's an unknown author. But I like it because, when we think about whether we feel like loving or not, and that was the first aspect, love whether you feel like it or not, one thing we have to understand is that we married our spouse, for better or for worse, all the flaws and everything. And this quote, I liked it. I ran across it when I was preparing for the show. It says, I want all of you, all of your flaws, all of your mistakes, your imperfections. I want all of you. So we have to remember that when we cross that out, we have that in mind. I'm going to love you, warts and all, every flaw, every imperfection. And as life happens, and it does, and we have that little season of love waning a little bit, we have to remember that we married them, flaws and all, right? And we love them, flaws and all. And so you love whether you feel like it or not. Now, number 2, I want to go forward with this. Grab your pen and paper. Number 2, about what I want you to remember about your aspect of love and how you need to keep it in place is this. Love, whether, of course, I said you feel like it or not, and then whether it's convenient or not. Hey, guys, sometimes it's just not convenient to love, is it? We live in such a busy lifestyle. I'm telling you, I don't know. I think I could put myself up against about 20 people, and I probably put more in one day than sometimes 20 people can. But we are just in a rat race of life. And a lot of that, I think, is Satan's ploy to keep us distracted from what? From family, from the ones who we love the most. We spend the less time with sometimes. And we need to change that. That's not one of the points I'm giving you about time, but we know how important time and communication are when it comes to love. But whether it's convenient or not, and I can tell you, nothing breaks my heart more than to see a parent slough off a child because it's not convenient. They're busy about their work, or they're busy watching a program, or they're busy playing a game, or they're busy, whatever it is, but they don't have time for their kid. The same thing happens with spouses. We get engrossed or involved in what we are doing, and that's the selfishness, I believe, that we have come to adopt as humans. I think we all have that tendency sometimes to be selfish, but I think that we have an overdose of selfishness these days. And so whether it's convenient for you, whether you might be late for an appointment, you have to decide whether it's a matter of life and death. And sometimes it is. You know, I can tell you, Bill McDonald, the one I was speaking of at the beginning of the show, I guarantee you he hugged his kids and he hugged his wife. You could tell that that was important to that man regardless, and it sounded like he was always on the run because he had like 20,000 clients as a veterinarian. Can you imagine that? He was always on the run, but he made time. It was always, his family was always convenient for him. Nobody was more important than them, and they were a testimony to that. I just love that, and I believe that we need to concentrate on that too, whether it is a convenience or it's not. Love has got to be in place. It cannot be misplaced, and so you make sure that you take the time to let your kids, to let your spouse know that no one is more important than they are. The only one that should trump your spouse is the Lord. He should be first, then your spouse, and then your kids. And if it comes in any other order, then it's out of order in your home. All right? We're going to go to a brief break again. I'll come back. I want to whet your appetites again because we do have a third point here I don't want you to miss. And I can tell you, this is going to be the most difficult point of these three aspects of love that you will have to deal with. So I'm just going to prepare your heart and your mind for that, wrap around that for just a moment, and when we get back, I'll share that with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Just Ask Joyce show. I'm Joyce Oglesby, your Family Life Fix-It Pro. I'd love to help you with a relationship question. If you have one, write me justaskjoyce@gmail.com, or you can call me. The phone number is up for you. Make sure that you jot it down and keep it just in case you need me. We're talking about love because it is February and our hearts think of love and romance, but again, we should be thinking about love around the clock, every day, day in and day out, 24/7, 12 months a year, all the time. Because love is the single most important thing that we can do in our lives, all right? And we talked about love whether you feel like it or not, whether it's convenient or not. And I just want to kind of wrap this up with someone else's quote. Now, I do know who quoted this. Again, this is not mine. This is a quote of Albert Hubbard. Listen, do not take life too seriously. You'll never get out of it alive. Yeah, when we think about all the mundane tasks that we have that take us away from loving our families and giving them the proper love that they deserve, that's a sobering thought, you know. And Bill McDonald certainly didn't think he would be taken so shortly, you know, a very young man again. So we don't know whether when we hug and say I love you and kiss our spouse before we leave, and I pray that you do that, whether it might be the last time we have that opportunity. So make sure that you seize every moment to love. It has got to always be convenient for you to love on your family, all right? And the three aspects we're talking about, of course, the first one, as I said, whether you feel like it or not, and then number two, whether it's convenient or not. And then the third aspect I want you to remember is the most difficult, all right? I'll promise you it's going to be the most difficult. And here it is. Love whether it's returned or not. Now, I can tell you, I told you that was going to be the most difficult, didn't I? I talk to people a lot of the mentoring, once you start having relationship issues, it's because someone is giving more love than the other. Someone's not giving 150%. And that makes it difficult in a relationship. But I tell people all the time, they're like, what do I do with this? I mean, I do the right things. I always tell people, do the right thing. And the right thing is to love. And to love whether they return or not. But they're like, that's just so difficult to do. I know it is. I know that. It is the most difficult thing you'll do. But here's the thing. As long as you do the right thing, as long as you keep trying and you keep giving 150%, whether it's returned or not, you will have done yourself a favor and your legacy a favor. Because win, lose, or draw, when relationships are being challenged. If you do the right thing, you can look at your kids in the eyes and say, you know what? I did everything I could to save this family. And a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people can't do that. And I know that it is difficult to love when it's not being returned. I can tell you, as a child, that's how I felt. I just was very creative in the measures that I would try and show my love and affection for my parents, and it just wasn't returned to me. Not because my mother didn't love me, and I'm sure not because my dad didn't, but they were too busy fighting each other and fighting life and all of its challenges and difficulties, and it never got returned to me. It just never got returned to me, but I still kept loving. And thank goodness, before each of them died, we were able to enjoy love between each other. It was a wonderful moment, and it can be for you too. But I can tell you, I'm so grateful that I have not had to have that challenge with my spouse, because I've never been through a day in my marriage where I have had to wonder whether Webby Oglesby loved me or not. And I pray that he has never had to wonder that about me, because we have done our best to make sure that you are more important than I am, and that we practice these aspects of love. Again, let's go to the graphic and we'll see them, all right? You love whether you feel like it or not. You love whether it's convenient or not, and you love whether it's returned or not. Difficult stuff in matters of love, right? Don't go away. We'll be back with more on Just Ask Joyce. Thank you so much for joining me today. Just Ask Joyce. It is where real life and family values connect, is it not? I pray that you have, I've been doing this for a year now on these stations, and I pray that you have grasped what I have to offer you. The message that I try to convey to you is to love. It is to preserve your family legacy. And the only way you can do that is to love. And, that comes with things that you have to exercise, like forgiveness. And when I talk to people all the time, if you do not forgive, you cannot ever start over. You can't start over. And I know there's some egregious things that people do to one another in life, but you have to forgive. If you don't forgive, you're never going to be able to start over, number one. But forgiveness is for you more than it is for the other person. But I want to leave you with this. If you missed the episode of the show, love whether or not, whether you feel like it or not, whether it's convenient or not, or whether it is returned or not. You just love whether, all right? But I want to leave you with this final thought of this special love show on Just Ask Joyce. And this is my quote. Now, I've given you several quotes, but this is my quote, all right? Love because you do, and do because you love. Love is a verb, it's a noun, but I can tell you it's got to be more of a verb than it is a noun. And verbs are action. You have to put love into action. If you don't, then how are people going to know that you love, right? So love because you do. You can't help but fall in love. Sometimes, it's just like, I didn't have any control over my love episode with Webby Oglesby, I can tell you. It was instant, and so I loved him. But I do because I love. I do for him because I love him. And that's what we should be doing to our families, our kids, our spouses, our extended family. All right? That's the best I can do for you. We'll have lots more of episodes to talk about love. But in a nutshell, love because you do, and do because you love. All right? I'll be back next time. I'm Joyce Oglesby. And in the meantime, I'm in battle for his cause.